That Jim Seppola set this time up right now because it is the 250th anniversary of the U.S. Navy. And 1775 was the beginning date for the U.S. Navy, as well as the Marine Corps, as well as the U.S. Army. So our armed forces got to start in 1775. I'm going to tell some sea stories here. It's great seeing you all. I've had a great chance. This table here is pretty much number one in my view. I would say that
number one.
I would say that every table is probably like this, because whenever we're gathered together like this and we have a chance to share stories, it's really very fulfilling. It shows you how important these men's breakfasts are. You know, for the chance to have some camaraderie, as well as recall your lives, some of the life missions that you've had and experiences that you've had. I'd like to tell you a little bit about my experience.
Maybe move over a little bit. There you go. The screen is, yeah.
Thank you, Jim.
But the screen is shining, or the projector is shining in your face.
Okay.
But you're good there.
So I'm good here.
Yeah.
Next slide, please. My Navy story began with my family. And I just was in Hawaii this last week, and I had a chance to visit the house where my mother and my grandmother were. My grandfather was a career naval officer. He basically came into the Navy as a battleship sailor in 1929, was on the battleship Arizona, was on the battleship Mississippi.
Really?
Took Herbert Hoover, escorted President Hoover down to Haiti and the areas around the Caribbean. But for my particular time in life, my mother was there when my grandfather was there on that Sunday morning, December 7th, 1941. My grandfather was at Pearl Harbor. He also was a repair officer on the USS Medusa. You can see the Medusa right here on the other side of Ford Island. Here's Battleship Road here. And then the USS Medusa was on the other side. But he was a carpenter. He was a repair officer on board the Medusa. He was there for the entire period of time after the attack on Pearl Harbor to get the battleships through the dry dock areas, and he actually forward deployed to New Guinea to support the repair of naval ships in the conflicts, getting ready for the Philippine invasion in 1944, as well as the American support of MacArthur going all the way to the defeat of Japan. So this was part of me before I was even born. The fact that I had some salt in my veins.
There you go.
My ears echoed with my mother's recollection of my grandfather's service at Pearl Harbor, my grandmother's service when they had quarantines inside of Hawaiian territory during those war years. So this was a big part of my life, big influence in my life, which really set the stage for my naval career about 40 years after Pearl Harbor. Next slide, please. Not to be undone by my grandfather was my father. And my dad, I'm from Los Angeles. I grew up in Santa Monica. I was born in Culver City. I went to Santa Monica City Schools and also the University of California, Los Angeles. So I do bear down, do my part here because I am an adjunct at the University of Arizona. But my father was instrumental in terms of taking care of people, taking care of the enlisted personnel, because he was one. He was part of the volunteer force, and then he became extended by President Truman for the Korean War. So I got quite a bit of information. My father was a second-class radarman, operations specialist in today's Navy, and he was on the Washburn, which is an amphibious ship for the Bay of Incheon invasion in the Korean War. And he was also on the USS aircraft carrier CV-33 Essex class USS Kearsarge. So he had two ships, couldn't wait to get out of the Navy, talked about his sea stories in Japan and what happened in San Diego, and I'll leave it at that. But, my dad had great character. He was a principal school teacher and obviously very influential in my life. Next slide. Here's the younger me when I still have hair now, but back then I had brown hair. And this is me in 1977, commissioned as a new officer out of the ROTC program at UCLA. And because of my grandfather's influence to pick a small boy, a tin can, a destroyer for a small wardroom, and for my father's input, make sure you take care of your troops, tell them what you're doing, tell them what the mission is. Those two things came together for me at UCLA. I was the battalion commander of the UCLA unit there, and because of that, I got the choice of my first ship, which was the destroyer USS Towers in San Diego. Next slide. These are my first ships. And I loved them. They were guided missile destroyers. They weren't gas turbine ships like the new Navy now or nuclear power. They were steam boilers. I know that we talked this morning about Gearing class and Fletcher class destroyers, which are 600-pound steam. These are the new destroyers that were built in the mid-50s. They're beautiful ships. Number 9 there was the USS Towers. Her nickname was the best in the West. And I got assigned for my first tour duty as an engineering officer. I was the damage control assistant and then the machinery division officer, M division. So I had 34 machinist mates on board. Yeah. I love these ships. I got all my basic qualifications complete, my C qualifications complete, my office of the deck fleet operations working with aircraft carriers, all on the USS Towers. But the Navy has a way of keeping you at sea, which is good. And so I split toured to Hawaii, and I had my second ship, which was the USS Benjamin Stoddard, number 22. Stoddard. So I had 22, and because I had this small ship experience, engineering experience, that set me up for a follow-on tour on the USS Goldsboro, DDG-20 out of Hawaii. So for all of you here, I had very difficult hardship assignments in the Navy. My first tours of duty were in San Diego and then Hawaii. And I ping-ponged back and forth, and I am really a Pacific sailor, Pacific Fleet sailor. And you can see the size of the Pacific Fleet and the Pacific Ocean is enormous. Next slide. When you're at sea, you're always training. And one of the things that you're doing working with your crew is professionally training yourself to achieve command at sea. And it took me the better part of 18 years after you have your tours of duty on different ships. I served on 8 different ships to achieve command at sea. And I did that. Here's my command group here up at the Battleship Massachusetts up in Fall River, Massachusetts, and some great commanding leaders there. There I am, up there on the battleship. And I went to sea as a commanding officer for the first time. And for everyone here, I have a chance for you to see portraits of Chesty Puller, Lewis P. Puller, most decorated Marine in Marine Corps history, right over here. And then finally, I had commanded my second ship, the guided missile Aegis cruiser, USS Lake Champlain, right after 9/11. So those are my command experiences. It took a lot with regard to keeping ready and working with crews to focus on their particular mission areas as a group, but also the specialists that were involved, the A-gangers, the people that were electricians, interior communications, operations specialists, engineers, the snipes, the supply types. It really does take, a team to operate a ship at sea. And I'll tell you a little bit more about those particular stories. But this is pretty much my marquee slide with regard to Command at Sea. The Command at Sea pin has 7 stars on it, and they're representing the 7 ships of the American Navy that were established by President John Adams back in 1799. So this is a very hallowed and very honorable pin to achieve, and you can only wear it when you achieve Command at Sea. Mm-hmm. So I got the privilege of doing it once, and I got really lucky doing it the second time. And then you see her at church. This is my beautiful wife of 47 years, Miss Chris. And she's always smiling, particularly when I come home from a deployment. The deployments were usually 6 or 7 months long. She was also smiling when I was away. During the Enduring Freedom operation there, we were in the combat zones there, so our pay got tax-free and plussed up. Yeah. And she and other of the wives that were back home basically didn't mind the fact that we got extended an extra month because the combat pay would also keep coming in, through the disbursement. So she was smiling on both times when we came back home. And then here's a picture, one of the final pictures of myself and my father at the conclusion of my tour on the USS Lake Champlain. But for everyone here, the sea story itself is, really just love of service, hard work, respecting your crew, building teams all the time, taking care of the ship so that you turn it over better than you received it. I had a motto on both my ships: if you don't maintain, you can't train, and if you don't train, you can't operate. So maintenance was the foundation of that pyramid there. And right now our Navy, you probably see it in the news quite a bit, and we'll talk about some of the operations now, and the deep blue sea that Dave just mentioned. The fact is that we've retired a lot of ships. We're, as they say in the Navy, we're sailing on yesterday's wind. And it's very, very important for us to support a strong Navy, just because of the size of the sea. And I'll also leave you with, I think, this morning, the fact that we should feel pretty good about who's on watch right now. And we do have people on the tip of the spear. We're not a garrison force. We're not just deploying things willy-nilly. There are people forward deployed, forward presence, crisis response. Navy, Marine Corps team is already out there. And I'll show you where they're physically at. Next slide. Kind of difficult to read, but I'll go from left to right. The U.S. Navy has really 6 fleets total. We've got the 6th Fleet in the Mediterranean in Gaeta, Italy. We've got the 3rd Fleet in San Diego, the 2nd Fleet in Norfolk, Virginia. We have the 4th Fleet, which is our newest fleet, down in Miami, Florida. We also have the 5th Fleet in Bahrain, Middle East. And then you've got the 7th Fleet. Well, we have about 290 ships, and at any one particular time, you got about 35%, 40% deployed. And the ships don't operate themselves. They need to be logistically supported. So you always have refueling ships, and you also have ammunition ships, and you need to have beans, as Henry Fonda used to say, beans, bullets, and black oil. You need to have that logistic support in order to keep an operationally ready fleet. But this is where our fleets are, and my sea story today to convey to you is my personal experience in each one of the fleet areas, and make comment about what we're doing now in those particular fleet areas. Next slide. My first deployment on my first ship in the Deep Blue Sea was in the 7th Fleet. How many people have been to Japan? It's a tremendously important, really they call it the aircraft carrier of the Pacific. And obviously there's quite a bit going on with China, and China's not going to be resolved. It just everyone needs to realize that we have a very strong posture, fleet posture in 2 different ports inside of Japan, but we also have Okinawa, which is the 3rd Marine Expeditionary Force in Okinawa. But we have expanded operations in the Western Pacific, and the 7th Fleet is our fleet. And that was the first deployment I had in the 7th Fleet, and it's in the hot areas of the South China Sea, which is in the fall, it's a very cold, just like being off of Boston or New York, northeast wind, northeast monsoons, very high density white shipping out there, who's who in the zoo, all around you in that entire area there. It's obviously a focal point with China and China's presence and posture there now. But this is where I operate in the Philippines. Our table talked about different places in the Philippines. We left the Philippines in 1992 after Pinatubo. My time in the Philippines was all in the 1980s when I was out there into Subic Bay and into QB Point Naval Air Station. But after Mount Pinatubo destroyed Clark Air Force Base, we left the Philippines. Well, guess what? We're back. We have extended defense cooperation agreements in the Philippines now. We have 11 different bases we're working with the Philippines with, and we're posturing different capabilities there in the Philippines to deter China with regard to what they're doing in the South China Sea. But it was a tremendous experience on a steam destroyer, working with, I think it was the Ranger carrier group back then, and which is a conventional oil fired non-nuclear aircraft carrier. We have all nuclear aircraft carriers now. But great experience for yours truly. Got my qualifications and got quite a bit out of forward operations. Next slide. This is the hot spot. I was telling the table earlier today that the U.S. Navy and the way we were set up after the Cold War in particular, we really do love the Pacific. We really do love the Mediterranean. That's in our, seems to be the natural thing of working against the Soviet Union during their posture. But what happened after the Iranian Revolution in 1979, the Middle East, the Persian Gulf, the North Arabian Sea became the focal point for naval force deployments. After we tried to rescue the hostages in 1979 during the Carter administration, it became even more important, and they had the establishment of the Carter Doctrine. So since 1980, really, we've never left the Persian Gulf, or we never left. It's my most favorite place, actually. Been over there 5 times during operational deployments. My first time over there was on the USS Goldsboro, and you can see this young officer here sitting at this great wardroom table there. You may recognize this commanding officer there, who is Commander Michael Mullen. And my skipper, Mike Mullen, went on to be the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff.
Oh, yeah.
So he's still back in Maryland right now. He's a Naval Academy graduate. I was a UCLA graduate. We still got along. But this was our deployment. You can see this here. Our mission there was to move oil. It's like Secretary of State Baker said, the most important thing about the Persian Gulf was oil. 40% of the energy coming out of the Middle East was going into Europe. So our mission there was to escort oil tankers out of Kuwait and in through the Persian Gulf. This area, just so you can see, from Kuwait up here, and this is even Iraq, but mostly Kuwait and Saudi Arabia ports. This is about the distance between Los Angeles and San Francisco.
Oh.
So it's about 410 miles going from the very foot of Kuwait all the way to the head of Oman. So we'd escort them all the way out and then come out through the North Arabian Sea here and the Gulf of Oman. Now the Iranians had silkworm missiles, and this is the period of time that I was out there, was during the tanker wars. And this is where the Iranians would come out, and they used to shine their light in our bridge and look at our number so they wouldn't hit us with their Sea Killer missiles. They'd go over the horizon, shoot a couple Sea Killers, and then they'd tow the tankers into the UAE. 6-month deployment. In the mid-'80s, before the Stark, if you remember the Stark, USS Stark was hit, and before President Reagan established Ernest Will, which is additional operations. Ayatollah Khomeini was still alive, and we were still at loggerheads, and Saddam Hussein was fighting the Iranians in the Iran-Iraq war. Very dangerous place. Mines were getting into the water. I lost a little bit of weight, and we made it home safely, but our shipmates were out there and are still out there in this particular region. So from my sea stories in the deep blue sea, very busy, always operational, refueling every 2 or 3 days with tankers out there. And we had to pull in to get some of the most beautiful fuel for the boilers in the United Arab Emirates. Almost crystal clear alcohol, beautiful. Next slide. One of the other deployments in the 4th Fleet, this is our newest fleet, and you probably heard in the recent news that the United States sent 2 guided missile destroyers south, and they're the same destroyers from Norfolk and one from San Diego, to do maritime interdiction operations against drug smugglers coming out of Colombia in particular, and Ecuador, into Mexico. And this is also my mission in the 90s, where I'm in command of this particular ship, Louis B. Power. We had to go down to Colombia, eastern Colombia, and also through the Panama Canal 4 times. to do the drug interdictions. And we got 24 of what they call go fasts. And these are supercharged. You can see, for many folks from Minnesota and enjoy Merc cruisers and high-speed vessels on the Great Lakes or one of the lakes in Minnesota or even Wisconsin. They've got 4 of these 200 horsepower Merc cruisers on the back of these Ponga boats. And all of those particular 5-gallon drums or 20-gallon drums are all cocaine that they're transporting. They're calling them go fast. They also use submarines in the Pacific. They go way out. But this is a big part. General McCaffrey used to be our drug czar back in the 80s and the 90s when all this was happening. And this is still a very serious mission for the United States. And the United States doesn't, the Navy doesn't basically have war at sea against drug violators. But what we have Coast Guard. How many Coast Guard do we have here? About 1 or 2? Okay. But the Coast Guard is embarked on Navy ships, on law enforcement detachment ships, and we communicate. They don't respond. We shoot warning shots across the bow. We disable the engines, and we interdict and then take it aboard and take it back to Miami or take it up to San Diego. Not a 6-month deployment, only a 5-month deployment. Lots of different weather challenges down there. This is during the winter time. This is where the tropical convergence zone is, 3 degrees north latitude. And one of my sea stories, and shows you the importance of lookouts on board ships, it was very foggy. You couldn't see out of the radars. The lightning bolts would come down and curve back up into the clouds. And we were off of San Buenaventura, Colombia. And on the port side, a junior sailor says, "Ship coming out of the fog." And it was a ship coming out of the fog, a pretty good sized lumber carrier from San Buenaventura, Colombia. At that particular moment, I said, "This is the captain. I have the deck and the con, right standard rudder, all engines ahead, standard," and basically shifted my rudder, created a long line to create the bearing drift I needed to get that ship off the port quarter. We didn't have a collision. We didn't have a collision because we had no situational awareness, but because of the lookout, we didn't have a collision. Within 1 hour, I talked with the XO down in on the ship, and I awarded this particular sailor a Navy Achievement Medal for his conduct to save the ship in a very messy situation with regard to the weather. And of course, he got head of the line privileges for lunch.
Yeah, there you go.
This ship is named after Chesty Puller. General Puller is the most decorated Marine in American history. 5 Navy crosses, and we had his picture, we had his medals, we had everything on board the ship. The ship won the Battle Efficiency E, which was the first time she won it in 14 years because of the conduct of this particular crew. And Panama's been in the news a lot. We were down there during the time when it had just been turned over to the Panamanians, and actually did a quite good job. And for everybody here, you may know this already, but the Panama Canal is a freshwater canal.
Yeah.
You have to have water in Gatun Lake, and it needs to flow, and they lose lots of fresh water every time they empty and fill, and there's convoys that go through it. You usually go from the Caribbean to the Pacific at night, and from the Pacific to the Caribbean during the day. So I lost some weight there too. So I used to run in the jungles in Panama on this particular cruise. Great ship, great cruise, still miss them. I'm still in contact with many of them as well. Next slide. I was sitting at home in San Diego on top of Point Loma. My mother-in-law was visiting. We were taking her to the airport on September 11th, 2001. And I turned the TV on. I was going to go down the hill to get some cinnamon rolls. And I saw the second plane hit the Twin Towers. And right after that, the plane hit the Pentagon. And the place that it hit the Pentagon was the place I used to work. Right down the hall from the Navy Command Center in the Pentagon on the E-Ring on September 11th. I assumed command of the USS Lake Champlain, Aegis cruiser, 10,000 tons, 406 crew members, 2 aviation deaths, and we set sail and we headed out to with the John C. Stennis Carrier Strike Group. We had 8 ships, 1 submarine, and we got out, we went to Hong Kong, and the People's Liberation Army Navy protected us because they didn't want anything to happen to an American warship in Hong Kong. We went to Singapore and got stores, and then we went right on out to the North Arabian Sea. Between the Singapore and the North Arabian Sea, they had a bombing at the legislature in New Delhi, India. Colin Powell was the Secretary of State, and he asked the Secretary of Defense to recommend sending a ship into New Delhi, or into Mumbai, India. I got that nod. So on the way out to the carrier area, I got to go into India for 3 days. Very interesting place, by the way. But then I joined up again, and we had 5 carriers from the United States, France, etc., off of Pakistan. This was during the Operation Anaconda to try to find Tora Bora campaign. I was the air defense commander on an Aegis cruiser supporting the aircraft carrier launches off of these carriers. Our main role is to make sure that they were sweet with their IFF, and then when we're coming back, return to force, that they were friendly. So that we had this rotation for the close air support needed mission against the Osama bin Laden up in Afghanistan. It was a successful mission in terms of reducing the risk against the Al-Qaeda terrorism, but Osama bin Laden, as you know, was missing there until 2011 when they found him in Abbottabad, Pakistan. But this was a very incredible time. My hair was almost purely brown when I departed, and after 1,470 hours of day-night helicopter operations, working with international navies, the Greeks, the Italians, the French, different U.S. ships from Norfolk, we had really a great experience there. But I came back home, and my wife, again, waiting for me to come back home, said, what happened to you? So well, I just deployed for 7 months. I haven't had any sleep, and feel pretty good though, but my hair was as it is right now. So I'm pretty authentic when I'm presenting to you this morning, and I looked this way not too long ago. That's what I had. We came back in, we were a featured cruiser in the San Diego Union Tribune. So that's me alongside the USS Lake Champlain. I'm very proud of my crew. The ship was awarded the 5th Fleet Battle Unit Commendation during that particular time for conduct. So, and then here's me with a couple sailors. But this is a huge place. There's my ship there at sunset. In many respects, I'm still out there. And every time I see these things on the news, I don't have any post-traumatic stress. I just have these vivid recollections that have been bored, like many of you've had from Vietnam experience. They're there still. That they come at you whenever, but you manage them, which are all good. Next slide. Okay, this is the latest about your Navy, and this is again a good news story. We've got the Carl Vinson, which is the San Diego carrier, as I mentioned, right here. And she'll be passing through the Malacca Strait into the Indian Ocean, and she'll be joining up the Harry Truman. You can expect probably within the next 2 weeks, you're going to have additional operations against the Houthis in Yemen. It's Yemen, if you've ever seen the size of it, is bigger than California. It's huge. It looks like California, like an L, like a chess move on a chessboard. It's just a huge place, and it's been replenished by Iran. So this is, obviously there's a lot of diplomacy going on with Ukraine and Russia, and there's a lot happening with regard to preparations for a Taiwan contingency. But this is truly the center stage for global commerce, reducing the risk against the Houthis against maritime shipping. It's in the Navy's wheelhouse. We also have the air area off of Masira, Oman. We're not going anywhere, no matter what the current administration says with regard to American posture and our commitments. We have a very strong organization that supports fleets, that supports sailors and navies when they get out there. So ready forces are always deploying. You don't hear about them, which is good. Sometimes you do for a reason. But that's the big news from this particular chart. We have also the USS Nimitz is leaving San Diego. The Nimitz is 50 years old. Now,
Nuki.
you know, we have Mr. Zink here. He probably remembers when the Nimitz was commissioned back then. That's the new nuclear power aircraft carrier. But I've deployed with the Nimitz and just saw the statue of Admiral Nimitz out in Hawaii. But she's 50 years old and she's going to be decommissioned. We do have the new John F. Kennedy, a Ford-class CVN that's going to be commissioned next year. Then we have the Enterprise, a new Enterprise coming up, CVN 80. And then we have Doris.
Dorsey. He was
The second class at
in
Pearl Harbor.
Pearl Harbor, yeah.
Dave McCarrier.
Cook. Wasn't he a cook? Yeah.
Then we're getting another aircraft carrier, the USS Bill Clinton, named in CVN 82.
Okay.
So we got new carriers coming to replace all these carriers, but it takes 10 years to do it. Next slide. So there's a lot going on, and you heard about the 4th Fleet, the drugs. You heard about the 5th Fleet and oil and mission out there, and terrorism, which is all still there. You heard about the 7th Fleet, which is in regard to being ready for China. But don't forget about the 6th Fleet. The 6th Fleet is our flagship fleet in Gaeta, Italy. It's the USS Mount Whitney. We don't have a carrier there right now, but we usually have one carrier there. But we have distributed forces in the Med. The reason why we need to do this is because of Ukraine, because of the sea lines of communication from the Black Sea, and the Russians. The Russians have been very clever over the last decade. They've put together 20 new ships, task forces out of Cyprus, relationships with Latakia in Syria. That has been disrupted because of the Syrian revolution. But they also have a brand new port in the Black Sea outside of Crimea called Novorossiysk. And they have quite an order of battle of submarines. So we have difficult relationships with the Russians, not like the Cold War, but obviously not unlike the Cold War. I was privileged to serve on the United States Navy's Incidents at Sea delegations twice, one to Moscow, one to Seattle, and I've sat across the table from the Russian Federation officers, and they're tough. They really are tough. There's a sea story there too, but I'm getting, I want to keep
You get time.
So the 6th Fleet presence. Next slide. And the Middle East itself. This was a recent slide that shows the seriousness of the United States to posture naval forces to support mission. And it's the tactical situation is probably level 3 right now. If we go to general quarters, like a full-up DEFCON 1 or something, we could. But those type of circumstances burn people out. You want to just maintain a steady strain out there with regard to your readiness to prepare for target. You're always thinking about targeting, training. You need to get the crew rest and relaxation. You go into certain ports in Emirates and Bahrain to have port visits, which are good for that. And even if you get a chance to, like the Truman did, go up to Cyprus or U.S. Navy ports into Alexandria, Egypt. Next slide. And the Asia Pacific, critically important. This is a very busy slide here, but I like to use this during discussions or sea stories of the Deep Blue Sea. Because we just had an earthquake in Myanmar, Burma, and we just had the aftershocks in Thailand, and many of you may still remember the tidal wave that hit Indonesia, Aceh, back in 2005. Well, these red little dots here are the Ring of Fire. You can see it from Japan, all the way down through Indonesia, all the way up through the Malacca Straits, but this is where the Earth's volcanic activity as well as the plates always shift, and you get tidal waves and you get huge earthquakes. So America helps people. We sent people into Burma, Myanmar, directly, into Thailand. And it's very important we continue to do that. That's part of our mission package when these disasters happen. Also, everyone talks about NATO, but the United States has 5 special defense relationships in the Asia-Pacific region. Everybody knows about Japan. Everyone knows about the Philippines. Also, don't forget about South Korea. There's still a contingency there on the Korean Peninsula. Also, we have Australia. And the one that people, it's been a long time defense treaty, Thailand. So those are the 5 relationships we've got. Those are defense relationships that we posture and support. Next slide. I'll conclude now by saying it's really a privilege to be here to talk with you all today. And I want to say from my heart, the people in my heart are still my crew. The relationship you have as a captain with your crew, I knew everybody's name, I knew where they were from on my ships, and what they did, and how they came together. They took honest feedback, the good, the bad, and the ugly, so we would continue to get better. I used what they called spiral staircase leadership. If you had a space that was not materially ready, we would inspect it, tell the truth, and I learned this from Mike Mullen. Everybody wants to go on Liberty on Fridays at 1 o'clock. That's when we had our zone inspections on the ship if we needed to improve things. And soon we were going on Liberty at 1 o'clock on Fridays. But to get there, we had to improve the material condition and get ready. Maintain, train, operate. So it's foundational, fundamental. And the crew did it. And they realized that excellence too. They welcomed everybody aboard the ship when they came aboard, new people. And they also trained the new people because they would be transferring to another location after their sea tour, which is usually 3 years. Next slide. Also, your bride, my family. I've been married to Miss Chris for 47 years now. Yeah. And that was us on my retirement day for Pastor Tim. There's Pastor John right there. He joined the Navy for a little bit of time, but he was always with us as well. Next slide. And those are my sea stories. And there's probably some questions that I'll welcome answering, but this is my crew of the Lake Champlain up in the dry dock taking her through the first dry dock in 7 years. We passed all 2,000 material inspections, enabling objectives, got her back to sea, worked up some more aircraft carriers, and from there I transferred and went to my final tour of duty in Washington, D.C. So thank you very much, gentlemen, for your attention today, and I appreciate your interest in the U.S. Navy.
Questions?
Question.
Mike, questions? Speak loud, Jack.
I see the number of ships that are being built by the Chinese, and compared to the numbers that we seem to be building, much less. I'm just wondering how we're doing for the future of keeping our fleet up to where it has to be competitive.
We're behind the power curve, quite frankly, in terms of hulls. We're ahead in terms of technology. One of the things about the Navy that was really part of the Cold War Navy, but also persisted, and there was a good decision that was made to build more guided missile destroyers, is every ship itself, one ship, is a strike platform. And it means it has Tomahawk missiles. It has, right here in Tucson, we have Raytheon Missile Systems. And they have developed what they call the Standard Missile 6 missile, which is a supersonic surface-to-surface missile. You can have a spread of multiple Chinese ships, and you need to basically, there's lots of things that are classified, but you need to know who's who in the zoo in different locations. The Chinese have 3 fleets, and they have a lot of forces. They like mass. But you can basically, based on the tactical situation, be defensive against whatever they would shoot at you. They have strike capability as well. They have the new Type 53 destroyers. They're all gas turbine as well. They're all strike capability as well. But they have the mass, they have the numbers themselves. They have a lot to do with the South China Sea. They built new bases on islands. They operate out of Zhongshan, which is to the south east of Hong Kong, and that's their southern fleet. I didn't put it on the slides. I should have brought that in, but I actually was one of the command ships that hosted the Chinese Navy visit to San Diego. They had 3 ships that came back in the 90s, and we were the host ship in San Diego. But I will tell you, technologically, in terms of advantage, in the Pentagon, they have a saying, you may have heard this, .mil-PF. It's called doctrine, operations, maintenance, people, financing. But these are different elements of how we build capability. We only need 1 or 2 ships, and we need to have good intelligence to basically hold surface fleets at bay in the Chinese Navy. Now, they're building aircraft carriers as well. They're building their own aircraft carriers with flight operations for presence. The Chinese were the only country on the permanent 5 of the UN Security Council that didn't have an aircraft carrier. French had one, UK had one, Russians had one, the United States, but China didn't have one. So it's a prestige thing as well in terms of forward presence. But we can do a lot. Final point, submarines. Chinese don't know where our submarines are. We're still quiet in terms of technology. They have this one island called Hainan Island, and you can look at it on the internet, but you go down there, it's like James Bond or like Austin Powers. They have these submarine pens, but that's where they come from. They have the Jin-class ballistic missile submarine, so they've got quite a capability. But that's what you have military to military discussions about, so that we don't make a mistake against them. They're formidable, but it takes 6 years to build a ship, and you have to have the right design, and it's just going to take us a long time. They just decommissioned the Lake Champlain. I went to the decom, and the Nimitz is going to be decommissioned. So what were we doing 6 years ago, even a decade ago, to anticipate what was happening? Because we're having a divorce with China right now in many different areas here because of our assumptions that were proven wrong after Nixon went to China. It happened around 2005 or 6. I served in the White House during the Bush administration. I was there with Hu Jintao, came to visit President Bush, and President Bush was trying to get the Chinese to do more against the North Koreans and proliferation of nuclear weapons. And Hu Jintao was all he was interested in was the middle class of China and expectations of the Chinese move into the cities. So we've gone a long way since that, but we're in a totally different place now because of the power of Xi Jinping. Thank you. Yes, sir.
Are they having any trouble with recruitment?
A question about recruitment, are they having any trouble? I think there was some in terms of total numbers. I think it was common to the armed forces across the board. I don't have a specific answer with regard to the numbers. I heard they've improved in the Marine Corps, and I would say if they've improved in the Marine Corps, they've probably improved in the Navy. We have fewer ships in the Navy now. Sailors love to serve. They like to go overseas. They like to have adventure. A lot of people like to go to Japan, and the other home port that we have, it's quieter, but it's rotational forces in Singapore. So there's some adventure there. There's more of a cyber force now. We actually have a 10th fleet, which organizes the cyber platform, and we have information cyber warriors as well. So for this new generation, I would say that there's opportunities there for them. I don't have particular numbers. I have heard that they did improve. I know the Army, based on, we've done this before, we've had to adjust the force structure number because people are 53% of the budget. 53% of our defense budget is personnel. So that's an important cost. And we're still needing to, rebuild ships and retain and so forth. So, but that would be a priority of me, is to hold on to your sailors, especially the E5s, the people that have the experience that can train new people. Because once you get back from a port, you get with your family again and you go to Shakey's Pizza or and life returns. It's an all volunteer force still. Yes, sir.
How do we stand up against the Russian Navy?
The question was, how do we stand up against the Russian Navy? Pretty well. Putin has, for the last 20 years, has really modernized the Russian Navy. They have some material gaps, though, because a lot of their gas turbine engines for their platforms were manufactured in Ukraine. So because of that, he has a challenge with surface combatants. He still has a significant force presence in Sevastopol. He's organized basically exercises with China in the Pacific out of Sevastopol and Vladivostok with the Chinese Navy. Up in the Northern Fleet, where most of their submarines are, he's got new fleets there. They do deploy submarines, and they have some mischief that is occurring in the Baltic Sea. They still have a significant force presence in Kaliningrad, which is right there adjacent to Lithuania and also Poland. So we stand up with them pretty well. And the force multiplier is the NATO naval forces against the Russians. So.
Any more questions?
Yes, sir.
One more. Why do they keep repeating the names of some of these major ships, like the Enterprise? How many Enterprises have we had? Why not try new names?
I can refer that to the Secretary of the Navy. I really do think that they have a committee that decides the name. In fact, my skipper, Admiral Mullen's going to get a destroyer named after him, Mike Mullen. The Enterprise has been around, really since the passion for it. That's America's tradition since Alexander Hamilton, is that we were part of an enterprise capitalist nation. And it's got a long legacy in terms of the sail ships, but also obviously World War II and the USS Enterprise and what it did during World War II. So they're going to build one again because CVN 65, it's still afloat. They haven't gotten taken out. They have 8 nuclear reactors on that ship, but they haven't haven't scrapped her yet. I think people like the name. So.
Okay, Mark? As the last time,
Yes, sir.
we have a certificate for you. Ron, can you take pictures? Ron McNutt? And then Mark has a certificate.
Great.
And we have a coin, another coin for you. We gave you one last year.
Thank you very much.
This one's got the chain.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you.